Well, hello and welcome to the Transfer Nation podcast and videocast. Wow, are you in for a treat today? We are so excited to have a special guest who is actually one of our co-social media directors at Transfer Nation. She is going to tell us about her transfer journey, what inspired her, what impacted her about the community college experience, how she discovered this journey, what it meant to her, and all the fabulous things that come into this story. And I cannot wait for this episode, and I can't wait for you to get to know Chrissy. We love her and adore her, and Nina is going to be my co-host for today. I'm Heather Adams, and you are listening to the Transfer Nation podcast. Welcome.
Yay!
Welcome, Chrissy.
Thank you. I am so excited to dive in today and talk with you both. And I'm just so excited. And the fact we even have a podcast and a video cast. It's incredible.
It is so
all right,
incredible.
Before we start, though, so for anybody who's listening to this podcast right now, you can't see this incredible scene that we're looking at, but Chrissy, can you describe for us what's sitting on your desk in front of the shot?
Oh my gosh. So today is National Coffee Day. So I've got 2 coffee mugs, but they're special because one mug is an owl, which is the mascot of my community college that I attended, Citrus Community College. And the second mug is a Bruin, which is the mascot of the school I transferred to, UCLA. So we have a little transfer mug moment. It's National Coffee Day. It's representing the schools. We're just over here living and having that transfer life. So
I love that. I love that you carefully said Bruin and not bear.
I hesitated. You absolutely caught that because I was like, Bruin. It's a Bruin.
Yeah, but I'm really excited, like Heather said, because we've been coworkers and we're working together now, but I don't know your full transfer story. So, take us on a journey. How did you start and decide? And if you knew you were going on this transfer journey at all?
Yeah, the start, I will say, I think the best way to describe it is I totally, I bought into the CC stigma. I hate to say it, but when I found out in high school, I was like a sophomore when I first was learning about the option of community college, and a friend who was older than me had decided on community college. And I just thought, isn't that for people who can't get into the traditional level? And boy, was I kicked off onto my butt learning the truth and reality about how amazing community college is, and even just transferring from one school to another. But ultimately, the reason I started looking into community college and transferring for myself was because my mom was diagnosed with cancer when I was a senior in high school. So everything changed. I did apply to a couple schools here and there, but I didn't really know what I was doing, and I had no idea how we were going to pay for it on top of medical expenses and things of that nature. And so I had a couple friends who had gone to Citrus College, and they said it was a good experience for them. And so at the time I thought, okay, I'll try this out. I'm not committing to a 4-year college right now. I can't make a solid 4-year path commitment at this time, not knowing the future for my mom and things of that nature. And so I did. I really enrolled blindly though into Citrus College, not knowing yet what a valuable resources the counseling team was there. I went to orientation and they set you up and prepared you. But as far as when I had to choose my own classes, I just was like, I have no idea what I'm doing. And I picked some random classes and thankfully they actually worked as far as credits go and everything. But about 2 years in, we were told my mom was going to pass away. And so I did take a year off of school. And actually during that year off of school, I was fairly certain it was not going to be a year, I was like, I don't know if I'm going to go back to school, because first, just such a hard loss of my mom. We were very, very close. And secondly, she was the provider in our family, and my dad's disabilities, didn't and don't allow him to be able to work. And so I thought, okay, I'm gonna work at Chick-fil-A for the, and for the rest of my life, and which is fine. Working at Chick-fil-A is great, but it turned out there was more in store, and I had the help of incredible mentors, thankfully, at the time, who were really supporting me. And one of them, her name is Eileen, she just looked at me one day and she said, "You're going back to school, aren't you?" And I said, "Well, I have no idea logically how that can happen, finance-wise, all of these other things." And she said, "Just give a counselor a call." And I was like, "Which counselor?" I was just so confused and just in this dark place and not knowing what to do next. And her little push, her little encouragement, like, "You should just call and set up an appointment with the counselor." And I did, and I went into the office, and Lord knows I was crying in the counseling office, like telling her my story and saying, "I have no idea what I'm doing. I have no idea what I'm going to school for. I am really heavily mourning this time, and I just, please tell me what to do." And that's the amazing thing about counselors. They say, here's things you can do, but ultimately you still have to pick for yourself. But the counselor was an incredible resource, and she helped me lay out a plan. And it didn't even matter that I hadn't been to school it might have been over a year, but it was about a year. Everything was still on a pretty smooth track, and she helped me pick out the classes. And even though I hadn't selected, a major or really know what I wanted to do at the time, she gave such sound advice and guidance to me, and that impacted me forever. And so I just picked up where I left off and got life together and went back to school. And then somewhere in the mix, I got an email that same counseling center was hiring, the Citrus College Counseling and Transfer Center, an amazing, amazing place. And I did get the job. I also was working as a barista. So shout out to the transfer students who are working multiple jobs. I hear you, I see you, and we support you. You're amazing. But yeah, so I was doing that, and that was amazing because it surrounded me with counselors who, we'd be at the front desk and they'd be giving me some advice while I was, being a receptionist and setting up students with appointments and calling them when their appointments were ready and things of that nature. And it finally came time to where I realized I was almost done and had enough credits to transfer and things of that nature. And at that time, I did narrow down what I was really passionate about and what I thought I could, use a lot of transferable skills with, which was an English major, being an English major. And one of the counselors, because I didn't know which schools I wanted to apply to, I was thinking in a very limited mindset in regards to finances, because that was just not something that was coming easy in life at that time. And the counselors all around me still encouraged me to not just apply to a certain number of schools or apply only to the schools you think you can afford. Try the UCs, both the UCs and the CSUs. Heck, try out of state if you want. But the one that stood out to me was UCLA, because UCLA sounded like just a school that just seemed so out of reach. And I heard about growing up, and I heard about, what an amazing school it is, but it just still seemed very out of reach. And one counselor talked to me about the Blue Gold grant opportunity. And that's actually what ended up paying for my tuition. Was basically, if you make under if you're under a certain household income, but you have above a certain GPA, then you qualify for the Blue Gold grant, which I think can be used towards any UC, University of California. And so that's how I paved the way financially. But I applied again. I thought I was going to a certain set of schools. I applied to a lot of Cal States, and that was exciting to hear back from them. And then I just made a last minute decision on the last day that UC apps were due. I just rushed through the application, turned it in, and I remember I was on a road trip when I got the email back from the UCLA, and it just felt like a very surreal moment. The sun was setting, and we were on our way to Arizona. It was a friend's road trip, and I saw the email, and I handed my phone to my friends. I was like, I can't read this. And then I read it, and I got in, and it was, oh my gosh, amazing to hear. Because I'm just thinking back on how hard and painful the process was at the beginning, and how much I was lifted up by people like the mentor I mentioned earlier, the counselors, the support of friends and family. And finances cannot hold you back, no matter what. There's always a way, always a way. And so I got to go to UCLA, where I was plugged into yet another amazing support system, working with you two during my senior year at the UCLA Transfer Student Center. And that was a huge support and I'll say blessing to me. And especially because my junior year, I focused a lot on job plus UCLA. I could not handle 2 jobs at that point. Some people can, and that's amazing. I learned I was not one of those people. And even that, I just, it feels overwhelming at first in the transition. And that's why we're here on this podcast. We're trying to help students navigate that. We're trying to empower educators to help students in that process when it feels overwhelming. But by senior year, I really got plugged in by working at the UCLA Transfer Student Center, helping coordinate the mentorship program, helping plan events, and just working with an amazing community of people who made me feel accepted and welcomed, and said, that stigma that you thought about in high school is absolute garbage. And it's amazing to get to tell other people that same thing now. But yes, I would say that is, it's supposed to be long story short, but it was a long story, so sorry about that. But I would just, it's absolute gratitude that for all those opportunities that just happened to happen along the way, and the reason why I'm so passionate about speaking about transfer, supporting students who are doing it, thanking and celebrating and highlighting educators who are paving the way for students to be able to have a process like this. These counselors who told me I could go to UCLA and not pay tuition. That's insane. And so I don't know. I hope that we'll be a part of putting the word out there that anyone's able to go to school and transfer. I cannot recommend going down that academic path enough. So.
Well, I think you came up with the title for this episode. The stigma is garbage.
Yes,
is now the
I
title
love
of
that.
this episode. And for those again who aren't watching this and who are listening to this, Chrissy is also wearing a Citrus College sweatshirt. So she is full on community college cheerleader right here, transfer journey, messenger and champion. But you mentioned so many important things, and thank you so much for sharing that story. What's so unique about transfer is we all have this shared goal, this sort of shared academic educational goal, but we all have these unique stories, right? And we all have these unique journeys of how we got there. You mentioned a bunch of really important things that I think are things to just note, especially for students listening to this. You talked about mentors, you talked about resources, you talked about major circumstances in your life that, sent your academic journey in specific directions. You also talked a little bit about the challenges, which, those are real. I wonder, are there really concrete things, kind of going back to the community college experience and kind of this end CC stigma that we always talk about. What are some concrete takeaways that you really gained at community college, that you talked about transferable skills? What are some of those skills? What are some of those things that you are so grateful for the community college experience for?
Yeah. Heather, there's a term that you've used the whole time that I've known you called scrapper. And I'd never heard of that before you. And she even made it a hashtag, folks. She says, hashtag scrappers. And I think that's a skill. I think that's a skill set and a frame of mind that community college taught me, was because you learn how to go and do the things on your own. Essentially, you learn to go with the support, of course, of the school. But I'm saying, like, for example, when I was sitting in that office, and I mentioned earlier, the counselor guided and directed and gave me support, but ultimately, you know, I was the one who had to pick the classes. I was the one who had to make those decisions. And so I think it really teaches you a lot about making decisions. You do eventually have to choose a major, and kind of, in the community college, you get the space to tailor what you're really passionate about and what you really want to do. Even if you end up changing your major later down the road, that's okay too. But it allows you to have the space and time to make those types of decisions, and just, I feel like, really allows you amazing opportunities in decision-making skills in general. And I will just say, getting to build those types of leadership skills, even if you feel like you're on the beginning half of college, that's where you're really building up the skills that you would go on to use in your career. Of course, you're building that at the 4-year level as well, but that's where you're becoming exposed to it. And like, for example, I felt that way again working in the counseling office and getting to answer all these students' questions and about transferring, and you know, a meeting with the counselors and things of that nature. So I think there's something in community college, there's a type of space that's there where you're really getting to be the one learning those decision-making skills, learning the scrapper skills, like building tough skin so that you can go on and just conquer it and really get to take over the you know, when you whichever school you end up transferring to, and then later on your career or whatever profession you decide.
Yeah, that's some really good input. I actually have never heard Heather Adams use a rapper before. Did you drop it?
I do not believe that for 1 second. I use scrapper all the time because it's my vision of transfer students is I have this just beautiful sort of image of all of us in our graduate robes, you know, kind of like superheroes with the I Heart Transfer kind of t-shirt underneath it. And I think of us as scrappers of folks who've, you know, found their own path, trailblazed, gone a different direction, taken the, you know, their own sort of journey and their own path. And so I love that you brought that up, Chrissy.
Yeah, and that's the thing about community college is you're making the decision to go down. It's not, I'm not saying it's non-traditional for everyone. Some people can you know, complete it in 4 years, but it is not traditional to the normal path where you go to a 4-year, and we support and love that too. Like, that's great for them. But I'm saying, you chose community college or taking the not traditional path for some reason, for some type of circumstance in your life. It doesn't have to be a hard or painful circumstance. Students can go to community college just because they hear it's find it financially better and more attainable option, and that's great too. But that's still a circumstance. That's still something that drove you to choose community college over a traditional path. And so that's where I think the the scrapper mentality comes out, where
Yeah.
you're building from that circumstance that allowed you to choose the community college level first. And that's amazing. That gives you skills. And things like I was shouting out students who work jobs while going to school or work multiple jobs. That's extremely common at the community college level. Of someone may be in school even part-time and working jobs, or some are in full-time. I was in full-time and doing, 2 jobs and tutoring at one point. And that's really what's going to build that tough skin that you'll be able to take with you the rest of your life, wherever you go in any profession. So.
And you said it really well, Chrissy. It's those transferable skills, and that's that scrapper mentality. It's that I know how to navigate a specific situation. It's not about hardship or about, and you were talking about kind of this traditional, non-traditional. It's just what we're conditioned, right? Some people have the opportunity to go straight into a 4-year university situation, and some people don't and choose a different way. And so there isn't one is better than the other, but what's so fascinating about this particular journey is that it's brought us all together, and there's something about this experience. And I don't think I'm speaking for myself, because I think we see this at Transfer Nation. I see your heads nodding. We've talked to a lot of transfers about this over the years, that because this shared journey, shared experience of transfer connects us. It bonds us in some way. Because of exactly what you're talking about. It gives you some time to kick around and explore on your own. It gives you some time to have chosen other life paths or choices in life or directions in life or circumstances in life, and still move forward in your academic journey however you want to. So I love that.
100%. Yeah.
Chrissy, I'm curious as to if you were always attached to English as being your major, or if you were ever considering other majors, because the community college experience, I very much agree, is so freeing, because I wasn't always a psychology major. I was like going back and forth with doing nursing or doing research or being an English major too. And I was wondering if you ever had that thought in mind.
Yes, and that's a fabulous question, because I think I changed my major at community college like 6 times. And so that, I think in general, it's interesting when you begin at the college level, it almost feels like you have to know right away what you want to do with the rest of your life. And that's horrifying. And I don't think anyone should ever have to feel that way right off the bat. I think that the traditional age to start college is 18. And so like putting that expectation on someone that age, it's a lot. And I certainly, gosh, when I started, I think I just picked liberal arts, and I didn't even know what that meant. I just thought, I think this is what people in educational sphere pick. I don't know. And then I did early childhood education, elementary school education. I did, oh my gosh, I even thought about doing sociology. I just back and forth. And it's interesting because I don't know. I've loved writing my whole life, and I've been passionate about English my whole life, but it just didn't occur to me how actually powerful that major would be. And again, like Heather mentioned a few moments ago, I was thinking a lot about the transferable skills too, and how I could take what I learned being an English major and translate that. Even if I didn't know what career I wanted to do yet, I was thinking, okay, but I'm passionate about this, and I could take the skills in this major to any job or career I end up choosing. There is a need for those types of skills. So that's something I encourage transfer students to think about too, if they're in a state of not knowing what major to go down or career-wise. As long as you choose, I would say, pick a major that has something you're passionate about, has skills that you can see being used in more than one, unless you are set on a certain career with a certain major. That's amazing. But just if you're not sure, maybe thinking about how can I translate these skills, since you're a transfer student, you know so much about being transferable. So picking a major that that will strengthen skills and aligns with your passions and what you believe in, but has skills that you'll be able to transfer no matter what type of job you end up doing.
I love that. You just talked about the transfer journey in this beautiful way of like, it doesn't end. It's still your transfer journey. You're still in transition even after transitioning from community college to a four-year university and then transferring into the life of career exploration after. Chrissy, thank you so much for sharing this gorgeous journey and your really beautiful and poignant examples of some concrete takeaways from your community college experience. We like to wrap up all of our student stories with 3 questions. Are you game for these 3 questions? Are you open to them?
Yes, I'm so excited. I'm ready.
Okay, I'll ask the first one. Do you have, and you've given quite a few wonderful ones, so not to put you on the spot, but one tip or insight for students interested in transfer? What would be your top tip or insight for students?
Yes, I would say there's a lot to learn about being open. So being open, meaning being open to new opportunities, being open to the idea of transfer. I was not open to this idea in high school. Like I mentioned earlier, I was going with the stigma thinking, oh, this is kind of what you do and you don't know. And it's really not that at all. So I say, if you're interested in thinking about doing that, I go in with an open heart, go in with an open mind. It just changed my life being open to the idea of community college. And then when I got there, I was open to certain majors I didn't think I would do. And then I was open to getting that job opportunity email where I ended up working in the counseling center. So I say just be open, and especially be open to relationships in the community, such as mentorships. I forgot to mention earlier, my first year at UCLA, it felt less overwhelming because I had an amazing transfer mentor. Through the program, I would later go on to coordinate under Dr. Heather Adams, and her name was Beck, and she helped me so much feel included and supported, and she was also an English major, so she had a lot of insight and advice to give. And signing up for that type of program, I get how it can be scary and nerve-wracking, and it can be overwhelming to think about just meeting new people and building those types of relationships in general. But that's where being open comes in, because that opportunity, it helped so much during my first year. It made me feel sane during the first year that can feel like a lot at first.
Yeah, I love that. I definitely could have been more open myself my first year. I similarly to you, like, had the stigma in the back of my head, fresh out of high school, and I just love that advice so much. Open-mindedness is a very transferable skill, and it will make you very comfortable. So that's some very good advice overall. So the second question would be, what is one thing, or maybe 2 things, why not, that you educators knew about the transfer experience? And educators could be professors, faculty, administration, any decision maker at the school.
Yeah, I mean, in my personal journey, I feel like the educators and the professionals I came in contact with and built those relationships with already were so supportive and welcoming and helpful as it is. But I think something that's just good for any educator to think about is the reason why a student might be at the community college level. For a lot of the students that are there, they did choose to go to community college, like we were talking about circumstances earlier. And so I think, that could relate back to being open-minded again. I don't know, when you're working with the student, maybe one-on-one, or even if you're an instructor in a classroom, it's just always good to think and consider maybe even what that student's life at home might be like, or the backgrounds that they might be coming from, and things they might be dealing with outside of school that you can't really see in school. And going in with that type of sensitivity to that, I've experienced that through so many professionals I've gotten to work with, especially this one over here, Dr. Heather Adams. But going in with that, I think sensitivity and just knowing that some students, may be dealing with different types of circumstances outside of the college, I think opens, when you're able to connect with the student with that in mind, I think the student feels all the more supported and understood, and ultimately smoothens the transfer path for them in that way.
And it sounds like you had a lot of really wonderful advisors and staff and faculty who understood the transfer path and transfer journey. So I think what you're saying is even kind of more poignant when you think about folks who maybe aren't in as friendly of a system as we have in California, because we do have this really lovely kind of pathway that works well for a lot of transfers. And so I think just that awareness that educators and faculty and staff and decision makers can have about changing the narrative of the students and individualized kind of focus on the student's experience is really important.
Yeah.
So our last question that we like to wrap up with is, if there was one thing that you could tell society or family or friends, or the one thing that you wish society knew or understood about transfer, what would it be?
Yes. Besides the name of this episode, which is the CC stigma is garbage, I would say this is important and it pertains to you, even if you didn't go through the transfer process, even if you didn't go to college. And the reason why is we're set out to empower and bring awareness to the transfer journey, because ultimately we're set out in ensuring that every individual can have access and opportunity to going down the career path they want, or just fulfilling their own dreams and goals. Some individuals go to school because their dream is holding that degree, and that's great. And it's so unfortunate and heartbreaking that some individuals don't have access to that opportunity, or think they don't, because transferring gives everyone access, but feel like they don't have that opportunity because of finances and because of other circumstances. There's so many that can come in the path of going down your academic path and things of that nature. And so I just hope society would understand it doesn't matter if you transferred, it doesn't matter if this pertains to you, everyone, because this pertains to giving everyone an opportunity to achieve education and achieve getting a degree. And it opens access just tremendously. It opens access to obtaining a degree and going to the career path tremendously, without there being, such obstructions like financial setbacks and opportunity gaps and things of that nature. So transfer opens the door to access, and I think access should concern everyone. So that's what I would say. I would love to take a megaphone and scream that to society, especially in the year of 2020. We need that scream through the windows from the rooftops.
Well, you have just said it here in this podcast. You have just screamed it through a megaphone, so to speak, that transfer means more opportunity and more access and more of everything that you're talking about. And we couldn't be more grateful for you and for your sharing of your transfer story to the world. Thank you so much, Chrissy, for your transfer inspiration and your transfer leadership. It really means the world to us.
Thank you so much. This was incredible, and I'm excited to not only continue to listen to these episodes, but getting to co-host some down the road. And oh my gosh, it's an amazing opportunity. I'm so excited.
And for those of you listening, if you have transfer students or if you yourself are a transfer student who has a story you want to share, please email us. I'll let Nina give all the details. We'd love to hear your story.
Yes, we would love to hear your story, no matter where you are in the States or even out of States, or from all over the world. Please email us at wearetransfernation@gmail.com. You can also DM us at our Instagram, which is the same title, at We Are Transfer Nation. You can also tweet us. Remind us of the Twitter, Heather.
At Transfer Pride. Woo, woo, Transfer Pride. We sign off and Transfer Pride, y'all. Thank you for listening to this podcast episode. Thank you for being part of the transfer community. In Transfer Pride, we'll see you next time.
Yay!